With the signing of Bud Dupree, we have said the Chargers now have the deepest, best edge group in the NFL, and now with Jesse Minter as their defensive coordinator, we are buying that this group can give the Chargers the most sacks in the NFL.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers for always making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, like you said, the Chargers have one of the best quartet of pass rushers in the NFL, but if they want to lead the league in sacks, they're going to need contributions from all over the defense. And who's going to be the wide receiver one? The only person who has any experience on this Chargers roster right now is Joshua Palmer. Can he do it again in 2024? And is Jim Harbaugh going to win the Chargers a Lombardi trophy in his first 2 years at the helm?
Can he do it before Little Dilly turns 2? That is the question. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. David, now that we are going 3 shows a week in our off season till mid-July, we wanted to make sure we got our buy or sells, and we know you guys love the buy or sell shows, and we have a great buy or sell from LV on Twitter here who says, buy or sell, the Chargers will lead the NFL in sacks this season. We have raved about what the potential is for this group of 4 now with the signing of Bud Dupree. You have Tuli Tuipulotu, who was one of the best edge rushers as a rookie last year, one of the best rookie edge rushers for sure, probably only behind Will Anderson. And now you have the top 2 guys of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and a potentially healthier season from Joey Bosa. I think the list goes on reasons why you could be optimistic about it. And you add Jesse Minter, who is one of the more creative minds as far as getting pressure in all of college football last year. Are you buying that this group, this defense, can lead the NFL in sacks?
I am buying it for sure. I completely agree that the Chargers have some of the best pass rushers in the NFL. I mean, I think they have the best pass rushers in the NFL. They are now the deepest edge group as well. But you can't just depend on the edge rushers when we're talking about leading the NFL in sacks. Last year, the Ravens led the NFL in sacks, and they hit 60. And when you look at who got the sacks, it was a collection of everybody. It wasn't just the edge rushers. It wasn't just the defensive linemen. It was the safeties. It was the linebackers. So it has to be a little bit of everybody. Of course, you need to have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa get you the lion's share of those sacks. They have to put a big dent in that. But you're going to need contributions from Derwin James, from Morgan Fox, even the linebackers, Denzel Perryman, hopefully Deion Henley. You're going to need sacks from all over the defense at all 3 levels to be able to get to that ultimate number of leading the NFL.
Well, and I think the interesting thing is the Chargers were 7th last year, so it's not like they were super far off. No. They were 7th, and Joey Bosa missed 8 games. But I think the other part of that, kind of to your point, is like the second leader in sacks on the Chargers was Joey Bosa, and he missed 8 games. Yeah. So they had a lot of contributions from everyone last year. So I think I would buy it, but you do need it from all those other guys as well, right? Like, can the linebackers improve on the 6.5 that Kenneth Murray and Eric Kendricks had last year? 6.5 is a pretty good number from your inside linebackers. The interior defensive line last year had 9.5 between Morgan Fox, Sebastian Joseph Day, and I think Nick Williams had 1 by himself. Yeah. So only 3 guys at that position actually contributed. I think if the defensive interior was a little bit better, I think that it would be an easier answer here if they had somebody. But yeah, Morgan Fox, one of the better interior rushers still in the league right now. Didn't have as many snaps as I think we wanted to see him have last season for whatever reason. I do think that with this more inexperienced group, Morgan Fox is going to get some snaps. I think they will value what he brings to them, especially in pass rush situations, because it was very easy for them to cut him this year and save some money, and they didn't. They kept him around. So I think that's part of it. Like I said, Jesse Minter, one of the more creative guys, and using everyone. Like he talked about last year with Michigan, he had guys that were better as interior pass rushers than he had edge rushers. A 7th round pick and an undrafted free agent were his best guys last year. but he made it work, and they were still one of the top teams in the country at getting pressure and getting sacks. And I think when you bring up the Ravens getting 60 last year, you're talking about a Mike McDonald defense. Obviously, the Chargers are going to be running something similar, and he's going to have to get creative. But I do think that a huge reason for them getting close last year, the Chargers, and being 7th, was Khalil Mack getting the 17 sacks. So I think there's going to be a lot of other people that kind of have to, make up for what he's not able to do in that regard, because I don't know if he's getting 17 again in 2024. That's it. Those are lofty expectations. I don't know if he's going to have, 5 in the same game against, 6 in, just against Aiden O'Connell by himself. So I think they will be able to make up the difference, though, with that quartet of guys that they have. I think that'll lead the way for them. Let's get to the next one here from Johnny Shuck, who says, buy or sell, Joey Bosa leads the league in sacks under Jim Harbaugh. So, David, we know that we said the Chargers are going to lead the NFL in sacks. Will Joey Bosa be the single season sack guy for the NFL this year?
Man, I'd absolutely love to see it. But the fact of the matter here is Joey Bosa hasn't eclipsed even 10 sacks since 2021, and his highest sack total was back in 2017 at 12.5. So leading the NFL in sacks, you got to get to the 17, 18, 19, 20 sack range to be able to lead the NFL. And, that's TJ Watt territory. I mean, that guy is always at the top of the league in sacks almost every single year. And I just haven't seen it from Joey Bosa. I'd love to. I think he has the ability to do so. I mean, when he's healthy and when he's on, he is one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. But to lead the entire league, I can't sit here and say that at this point in time, so I'm selling it.
I'm selling it too, and I don't think the Chargers will have the league leader in sacks on their team this year. I could see, Khalil Mack having another really good season. I expect him to. But they also, how many snaps are those guys going to get now that you have more competent guys behind them, right? You can keep those guys a little bit more fresh, and maybe they're more effective when they're in, but maybe they're in a little bit less. I think the hard thing with Joey Bosa is he had, 10.5 sacks in 2021. That's the last time he reached double digits. But over the last 3 years, he had 19.5 sacks. TJ Watt had 19 last season. So I think that's the hard thing to make the case for it. I do think Joey Bosa is going to have a healthier year this year. I think he could even potentially play close to every game. The problem is I don't even think if he played every game, I would feel confident in saying he's going to lead the league in sacks, because even if he gets 15 or 16, which would be his career best, which I don't even think is out of the question, it's not enough, because you have so much competition. I mean, not only TJ Watt, but you have also Myles Garrett and Danielle Hunter and Max Crosby and Micah Parsons and even Nick Bosa, who's actually led the league in sacks and been up there. So, there's just so much competition there that I would have to sell it, but it would not surprise me at all if Joey Bosa can have a pretty healthy season that he's getting 13 or 14 sacks. I just don't think it's going to be 20, and 20 might be what you need to win it this year in the NFL. So let's get to this last one here from K-Man real quick, who says, buy or sell, Chris Rumph will get cut prior to the season starting. David, are you buying or selling that?
I'm buying it. I think this is a pretty easy one, unfortunately, for Chris Rumph. This regime didn't draft Chris Rumph. He has not been able to get on the field as of this point in time after his foot fractured from last year, and they went out and signed his replacement in Bud Dupree. So for all of those reasons, I am absolutely buying the fact that this is going to be the last offseason that Chris Rumph is wearing a Chargers uniform.
I'm buying it as well. 3 sacks over 3 seasons. There's just not a lot of reasons to think he's going to stick around, assuming that the Chargers are going to keep 4 edge rushers. If they wanted to keep him for special teams, he has been a special teams player in the past. If they want to keep 5 edge rushers, he would be probably the most likely guy. I mean, there's not a ton of competition for the 5th edge rusher spot. You're talking about undrafted free agents from this year and undrafted free agents of the last couple of years that he's going to be competing with for the most part. So if they kept 5, maybe I could buy it, but I have to sell it just because, even when we've seen him, the most we saw him, 300 snaps in 2022, just wasn't great. He was a total liability on the edge. I don't know physically if he is going to be able to ever hold the edge at the NFL level, which I think is huge. And I just don't think you're getting nearly enough from the pass rush part of it to be able to feel good enough about how bad at run defense he's been. In 2022, when he played the most out of anyone who had 100 run defense and pass rushing snaps, he was 104th out of 120 in run defense grade out of the edge rushers and 123rd out of 133 out of pass rushing grade.
That's really bad.
That's towards the bottom of both of those lists. So I think the other thing too is in that year missed 52.7% of his tackles. That's another one. 20.
Yikes.
I mean, he didn't miss a tackle in either of his other seasons, surprisingly, in very limited snaps, but 23.7% missed tackle rate for his career. So I think this is the end of Chris Rump. Hopefully he can catch on somewhere else. Maybe they feel like he can get on the practice squad and develop more physically. But I just don't see it at this point. But we do have more great stuff to get into because the wide receiver room for the Chargers is very convoluted and confusing at the moment. But if there was anyone that could be wide receiver one and you can make a good case for it, I think Josh Palmer has a case. So we're going to talk about that and much more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel because it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, prayer props, and more. And that means all you have to do, you can go find the biggest favorite on FanDuel, and as long as they win, even on the money line, even if they're a huge favorite, you get $150 in bonus bets. And I know we are all counting down the days until the Stanley Cup finals and the basketball finals happen with my Ice Cats in there. I had to throw that in there. But the great news is there's still a ton of baseball you can be betting on until then, including the Padres, who are taking on the Angels tonight. And you can get them to win by more than 1.5 runs right now at plus 126. I like that with the knuckleballer Waldron pitching. If you haven't watched, you're not going to see many knuckleballers. That's a reason in its own. Betting on it makes it even that much better. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. David, let's continue this Chargers buy or sell here. And we have a good one from Sean Jackson Jr. on Twitter who asks us today, buy or sell, Josh Palmer can be the #1 wide receiver for the Chargers next season. David, I think a lot of it's going to have to do with health for a lot of the guys you can make the case for. I know some people think, hey, Ladd McConkey's going to come in and be wide receiver one and have the most receptions year one. Maybe some people think Brenden Rice is going to be Puka Nacua in year one. So I don't think there's any conviction that anyone has right now on who is going to be the leading guy. But to me, I am buying it because I absolutely think he can be, which is the question. And I think he probably has the best shot at it.
I agree. I'm buying it as well. And it's because he's the only person that's on this Chargers roster that has been a #1 wide receiver for Justin Herbert at all. I mean, everyone else is, basically new to this football team. So he had 2 100-yard games last year when he was basically the #1 wide receiver. And then the previous year, he also had 2 games over 100 and one at 99 in 2022. So he does have a lot of experience. He has the most chemistry with Justin Herbert at this moment in time. I like his game. I feel like, when he's on the football field, he can make plays at every level of the defense. So I definitely believe that he can be the #1 wide receiver if he's able to stay healthy throughout the season.
Yeah, I think he has the best shot. I mean, I think for him, the consistency has always been the biggest thing. I mean, he always gets banged and, bumps and bruises during the season. So I think staying healthy is going to be the biggest thing. I really wish he wouldn't have had to hit IR last year and miss a big chunk of games because it would have been really cool to see how much he could have developed without Mike Williams on the field for that big stretch. And he got hurt against the Chicago Bears. And it just didn't happen, right? He came back at the end of the season, had some solid games, but then it was Easton Stick who, for a lot of the games after he got back, did put up a 100-yard game with this Easton Stick, though. I think if you're looking for reasons to kind of be hopeful about it, I mean, if you go back and look at the 4 healthy games he had after Mike Williams got hurt last season, right, not including the Chicago Bear games, which he got hurt in, he had 16 catches over those 4 games for 383 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 23.9 yards per catch.
Yeah, that's good.
A big part of that is, the 75-yard touchdown they had in the Easton Stick game, the broken coverage against the Raiders when they lost that huge blowout. But, we've seen it from him in spurts. I mean, you go back to, 2022, like you talked about, 399-plus yard games over a 7-game span, 99, 106, 106. So he's shown that he can be that guy. I think he's probably the leader to either be, the X receiver or the off receiver from the get-go. I mean, he is wide receiver one, at least for Justin Herbert, until the things change. I think the hardest thing is just not knowing what this current regime thinks about him, right? Because we've only heard about a couple of practices, but Josh Palmer's not a name you're hearing a ton from. We know he's lining up with the starting offense, but now with DJ Chark in the mix, Ladd McConkey, I think what Quentin Johnston, how much he improves will have a lot to do with it as well. Yeah. It's so hard to tell with this receiver room right now. There's a lot of questions. And I think 619 Shaggy brings up a great buy or sell about Brenden Rice, saying buy or sell, Brenden Rice will be starting / and or playing 50% of the X snaps. So we've talked about it a little bit before. The X is what Mike Williams was for this offense, right? A guy on the outside that you're going to be expecting to win one-on-one matchups against press man coverage because he's on the line of scrimmage, and you have to be able to win those, contested catches, be able to win those with your route running, whatever it is. But it's usually a bigger guy. You're not going to see Ladd McConkey playing that. You're not going to see Darius Davis playing it. That is usually what it is. Brenden Rice fills those, we were talking about like just the characteristics you're looking for. I think Brenden Rice checks a lot of the boxes, but are you buying or selling that he's going to have 50% of the snaps at that position, or he will be starting at some point this season?
Yeah, I'm going to sell it. I think that's a pretty big mountain to climb for him, where he was brought in. The Chargers signed DJ Chark to be that X receiver. I mean, he's the guy more than likely that's going to be out there on the line of scrimmage, that's going to be fixed to the line of scrimmage, that has the experience, beating press man coverage and using his speed to win deep. That's what he was brought in to do. So, given that DJ Chark is going to stay healthy, I believe he is going to be the guy that gets the lion's share of the X wide receiver snaps.
Yeah, I think it'll be a mix. The thing is, I think Brenden Rice at that position, the reason I would sell it is because he's probably third on the depth chart just as X receivers go. Like, I think, DJ Chark is a guy that can do it. I think Joshua Palmer is a guy that can do it and will do it for this team.
For sure.
And I think then you would get to Brenden Rice because I don't think that's what Quentin Johnson is, and I don't think they should use him that way. I don't think they should. He should be an off receiver.
Yeah.
Not having to deal with press man, getting him in motion, doing things to actually help the parts of his game that we know actually work at this level. But that still puts you third. So, I mean, injuries could happen. And like, I like Brenden Rice a lot. I think he could develop into, a starting X receiver down the road. Like, how high is that ceiling? It's impossible to tell right now. Like, can he be, a top 15? Can he be a top 30 receiver in the league? I'm not going to go anywhere near any of that right now. But I do think he has the tools and the skill set to be a starting X receiver in the league down the road.
He has to make the team first
before but he has to make the team first. So to say, hey, he's going to start, he's going to play over 50% of the snaps, I do think he'll make the team. If you're putting a gun to my head right now, that's what I would say. But right now, even just as receivers go, he's probably at best fifth on the depth chart as far as receivers go. And that would be if he was ahead of Darius Davis. But we've actually seen a little bit of Darius Davis playing receiver at practice, which leads us to the next buy or sell here from Drotalk SD, who says, buy or sell, Darius Davis will be more involved in the offense than he was in 2023. David, are you buying or selling that, considering this is your buy or sell?
Yeah, I am actually buying this one.
Okay.
And I think there's no coincidence that they are using Darius Davis to go deep, and they're throwing him the football in those situations. I know Alvin on Twitter has been screaming and crying and praying for this to happen because, they see, the fact that Darius Davis has real world-class speed, and that's absolutely true. He is a true 4-3 wide receiver, no question about it, although he's a little bit smaller. I mean, that's
small.
Another thing you can't discount. He's about 5'7". So, you have to be
5'7" and about 165 pounds.
Right.
At least is what he was coming out, which is an important part of it.
Yeah, so he's very, very small, but he is very, very fast. But I do feel like he's going to get those opportunities, and I feel like they should give him those chances. I mean, he does have the ability to go in deep, and if he beats somebody off the line of scrimmage that's covering him, then there's nobody that's going to be able to catch him. I mean, he's showcased that ability with his punt returns, and some of those things. And, what he's able to do in space, he's made the most of those opportunities. I'd like to see it. I hope we do see it. Not a lot, but I hope they do it a couple of times throughout the season.
I mean, that's the interesting thing, though, right? Because a couple of times, how many snaps does that turn into? He played 149 snaps last year offensively. So, if he's only getting 3 or 4 offensive snaps a game, he's probably not going to hit, 150 snaps. It'll be interesting, and I think health will have a lot to do with it. I could buy it, but I think it'll probably be about the same. I don't think it's going to be much more, and I think that there still will be a role for him now that we're seeing, how they're using him at practice. I think the big thing is he's probably only getting in there if Ladd McConkey's hurt. And Ladd McConkey has struggled to stay healthy, but that's what's happened at OTA so far.
Yeah.
He only started taking the first team reps when Ladd McConkey wasn't there to take the first team reps in the slot. So I think as far as receivers go, it's hard also because you don't know how much they want to expose him to injury as an all-pro punt returner.
That's true.
As their main weapon in the return game and a guy that you don't want getting hit a ton. I think he absolutely has some ability as a receiver and as a gadget guy, and I think if you put him in the slot, you can send him deep because you don't have anyone that's going to be able to get up there and jam him off the line of scrimmage. which is probably the hardest thing for him to do at his size, right?
Yeah.
Getting past that.
Definitely.
But last year, I mean, 15 catches, very small sample size, but also averaged 7.6 yards after the catch per catch, which is really, really good.
That's amazing.
One of the tops in the league of anyone that has a very limited number of
Sure.
catches and targets. But it's real, and he has the ability to make people miss after the fact. And I think we saw that a couple of times where he turned nothing into something, and it was a big game for the Chargers offense. But like I just talked about, where is he on the depth chart right now? 5th or 6th at best. So I wouldn't get carried away thinking he's going to have a huge role offensively.
Yeah.
But I think what he's shown them early on in OTAs is, hey, I can be a weapon in certain situations. If you want somebody to take the top off the defense, Ladd McConkey's hurt, you just need somebody to stretch the field, I can do that a little bit. But
Yeah.
let's not pretend he's the only guy with speed anymore, though, either. Ladd McConkey runs a 4.3. DJ Shark ran a 4.3. So he's not the only option where he was really the only guy that could do that for the Chargers last year. So he's one of the guys who I'm very interested to see what his role ends up being. But I have to think they're going to very much limit it because he is such a good return man and because they have so many wide receivers on the roster now. So we'll see what happens, but we still have more great stuff to get into, including Atheer calling into the show today, and he wants to know if the Chargers can win a Super Bowl by the time that little Dylan Wade turns 2 years old. So we're going to talk about that and much more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys about Game Time because Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, and I'd have to say, I mean, you should be using Game Time for any kind of event that you're going to, whether it's theater, sports, comedy, music, whatever it is. You should be going on Game Time because Game Time gives you the Game Time guarantee where you know that you're getting the best price. But the other big thing is if you're going to be going to an NBA Finals game or a hockey Finals game or a huge game where you know it's going to be a little bit pricey, make sure you're getting the best price, right? Going with Game Time assures you of that. Other great thing about Game Time is you can toggle it on the app so you get all-in prices up front so you know exactly what you're going to pay as you're trying to plan a big trip going to a finals game of any sort. And trust me, if I could and didn't have a 2-month-old, I would be trying to do that as well, especially with my Florida Ice Cats in there. I would be using Game Time to get my Florida Panthers tickets, but Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase so you can save even more. Terms apply. But again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. David, we still have some more great buy or sells to get into, and you know if Atheer is calling in, I should say, that we're going to be getting to him, and he has a great buy or sell for us today. But I want to make sure everyone is checking out the Locked On Sports Today, first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel where you can get coverage of every sport going on around the country, but getting the expertise of the local experts who cover those teams every day and only can have the insight that someone talking about their team every day has. So make sure you guys check out the Locked On Sports Today, first ever 24/7 national streaming channel. Wherever you get your podcast from, go subscribe there. David, let's get into this next buy or sell we have from Atheer, who is calling in, and you know if Atheer's calling in, we have to see what he has for us this week.
Hi, Daniel. This is Atheer. Buy or sell Monday. The Chargers will win the Lombardi Trophy before baby Dylan turned 2 years old. I believe she was born in April. I'm buying it. I believe in Harbaugh. What you say? Thank you.
Atheer, I love you too. Atheer. It's going to take me a while. A guy used to saying it so many times.
It's tough.
You know I'm an optimist. I'm more of a realist, but I get why David's definitely the optimist. I mean, I'm very hopeful. I'm very optimistic about this season with Jim Harbaugh and what he can be able to do. I think him winning a Super Bowl within the first 2 years is extremely high expectations to have for what the Chargers were going through in the transition that they have. Of course, he did go to the 49ers and did that and made 3 straight NFC championship games. So it's not impossible to do. Also, Dylan born March 31st, 9:02 p.m. So 3 hours before April. She did not want to be born on April Fool's Day, and I'm thankful for that for the rest of her life. But David, are you buying or selling this? We know you're the optimist for sure. Can you be that optimistic to buy that Jim Harbaugh can get it done in 2 years?
I believe in everything that Jim Harbaugh is creating. I really do. I love the coaching staff that he assembled, and I really, truly believe that he is going to bring the Chargers a ton of success. With that being said, I have to see it play out before I'm able to even me, as optimistic as I really, truly am, I have to see it play out before I can make that bold of a claim. So unfortunately, I have to sell it. Now, I will say this. If that were to change from 2 years to 3 years, then I would be much more inclined to buy it in that situation, because I do truly believe Jim Harbaugh is the coach that will lead the Chargers to a Lombardi trophy. I believe that wholeheartedly. I just don't know if I can sit here and say it, as blind as we are, having not seen any Jim Harbaugh Chargers-led football, that I can make that claim at this moment in time.
And I think that's very understandable. I'm going to sell it too. And I just think that because you're basically giving, to me, him 1 year to do it. Like, I don't think the Chargers have a Super Bowl roster right now. I don't know if it'll be able to come together that quickly. And I think it's unfair to expect that from them. As I've said before, I think the Chargers will be competitive. I think they will fight for a playoff spot in year one. Winning a Super Bowl, that's a totally other thing. I mean, he has now shown that he can win the big game coming off of the national championship game in college football. But I just think that's, that's crazy. I mean, Dylan born this year, so you only have the 2024 and 2025 season. Then again, I had Dylan, and my favorite hockey team, the Florida Panthers, are now in the Stanley Cup final. So maybe things are crazy this year. Maybe, Padres go to a World Series as well. Maybe baby Dylan changes everything. But not quite willing to go that far yet. I think if you put it at year 3, it becomes a much more interesting conversation. You're giving him a chance to build it. But I think the other thing is it's really, really hard. Like, who's going to be around this year and probably next year? Andy Reid and Travis Kelce. Those guys are probably still sticking around for the next couple of seasons. At least this year, those guys are both around. Well, Patrick Mahomes is going to be around through this whole thing, right? But you could realistically think that Travis Kelce's probably not making it to 2026. I don't see that happening.
No,
Andy Reid probably not making it to 2026, which would be that third year, right? So I think if you put it to then, I could see it a little bit more likely. But right now, you still have the Bengals and the Bills and the Ravens and the Chiefs. It's just incredibly hard, even if you have a great season, to make it to a Super Bowl, let alone winning one. So I'm going to sell it for now, but I do think they're building something, and I do think Jim Harbaugh is going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl in his tenure with the Chargers. So let's get to this next one here from John Clark, who asked a really, really good buy or sell, saying, buy or sell Atheer as the 2024 Chargers fan of the year. I have to buy it. I'm the 2024 Atheer fan of the year if I'm going to nominate myself as anything. So I'm definitely going to do it. And I do also want to just say that I think Chargers fans always get bashed by every other NFL fan base. And Chargers really do have such good fans. And I don't think they get nearly enough credit for that. But if, the NFL fan or the Chargers fan of the year is a Locked On Chargers listener, I'll be happy. If it's Atheer, I'll be ecstatic.
Absolutely, I'm with you. I am definitely dubbing Atheer as the Locked On Chargers fan of the year. We appreciate all of his voicemails, all of his interactions. He's been able to provide content for us a lot, and so I very much appreciate that. Thank you, Atheer.
Atheer, your trophy will be in the mail. I mean, I didn't even think about Locked On Chargers fan of the year. We have so many great fans, and we thank everyone who contributes and helps us do shows like this where we can get you guys involved. Speaking of which, we have one more here from Scott Childrens, who has a buy or sell, and we're trying to get to as many as we can today. And his buy or sell is a tough one. Buy or sell, the Chargers finally sweep 2 division opponents for the first time since 2012. David, we went through every game of the season and made our predictions. Are you buying or selling it?
Well, with that being said,
not everyone has seen that, though.
You're right. With that being said, when we did go game by game, I already made that prediction. So I obviously am buying it. I expect that the Chargers are going to sweep the Raiders and the Broncos, and they're going to split with the Chiefs, going 5-1 in the division. I know I'm a little crazy, but that's what I truly believe. I believe they have a better coach and a better quarterback than both the Broncos and the Raiders. And I feel like with their improvement on defense, the fact that Jesse Minter's not going to be a complete and total liability, I feel like they are in much better position, coupled with an effective running game. All of those reasons are why I believe the Chargers are going to be much more effective in the AFC West, and why they're going to sweep the Raiders and the Broncos. Yeah, Raider fans, I said it. Get over it.
I had them sweeping the Raiders. I had them going 3-1 against the Raiders and Broncos. I'll sell it. I think in year 2 we could definitely see it. It feels like maybe it's just all of the years, since 2012 or 2012, where they always slip up and always lose a game against one of their division rivals, not named the Chiefs, that they shouldn't lose. I think I had the Chargers going 3-3 inside the division. 4-2 would not surprise me at all. They absolutely could. They do have the better coach. They do have the better quarterback. I think both of those teams are in disarray. And I think a big part of Jim Harbaugh's team competing and contending for a playoff spot in 2024 will be taking care of the bad teams on the schedule. And the Chargers have the 5th easiest schedule in 2024. So I can absolutely see it happening. I picked them to go 3-1. I'll stick with that for now, but it would not surprise me at all. So I'll sell it, but it wouldn't be shocking to me. And the Chargers should win every one of those games. The biggest question is, will they win all the games that they should win? But that's story for another day. That is going to do it for us today. It is June. It is 3 days a week, but make sure you guys are back here on Wednesday because we will have a fresh day of Chargers practice, actual Chargers practice to talk about. So make sure you guys are back here. They're practicing on Tuesday, having open practice. We will be back here Wednesday morning, bright and early, to talk about it. So thank you guys for checking out today's show. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as following us on all of our social media where we post the show every day at Locked On LAC on Twitter, where we got a lot of these buy or sells today, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Me and David also post the show to our personal accounts. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogmeyer at Dro Talk SD. But thank you guys so much for checking out today's show, and we will still be putting out more Chargers content every week than anyone in the business. So make sure you guys are back with us Wednesday to talk about Chargers practice. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.